Welcome to Faith Talks Wood podcast. I'm Will from Flat Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.
And we're a podcast about faith, woodworking, and all kinds of stuff, and we talk about all of it. And Tom, how's your week been? My wife had craft fair, and I was just surprised at how successful it was. And not that we didn't think it would be successful, but you never know. It's her first ever craft fair. For those listening, if you don't know, my wife is a stained glass artist. Does a lot of smaller stuff. She doesn't do like windows, even though she could. She does like ornaments and, window hangs and stuff like that. And so yeah, man, she did this craft fair, kind of went out in faith. She's not that type of person. Like, she's very introverted, and she stepped out, did this craft show, and holy moly, was it successful. I mean, I was super proud of her and all the work she put into it. And I even got to sneak a few woodworking things on there, put a couple cutting boards and 3 charcuterie boards and some stuff. And we actually collabed a little bit. I used my laser to cut out ornaments, and then she glued glass to them. So they were really kind of neat. I don't know if you saw those on Instagram, but yeah, so did that. It was really successful. She did really well. And now she's been getting tons of Christmas orders. So she's really busy with doing ornaments and stuff for people. And it's funny, she has an Etsy page. And for anybody wondering, it's Grace's Glass Works. But she has a couple ornaments that do really well, but they're kind of a pain in the butt to make. And so if you look on her Instagram, or you see anything she posts, it has like it looks like it's painted on. That paint's not like you don't just paint on the glass. You have to clean the glass, you paint it on, you let it sit for several hours, and then you have to let it sit for 24 hours. That's right. And then you bake it in the oven, and then you have to let it sit even longer before you can foil it and then solder it and do all that. So there's the one ornament she makes. It's easy. It's just time consuming and stuff. And so I told her, I said, well, on your Etsy, just raise the price of it. Like, if you don't want to have that many sales of it, just raise the price to a point that isn't out of the world, but enough to maybe deter people. And so she did. And guess what? It's not deterring people.
Oh, no. They find more value in it.
Oh my goodness, man. So anyways, so she's been busy with that, and just getting ready for Christmas. And we'll talk about when we get the shop talk. Yeah, I may have got myself a little over my head, but we'll see how it goes. But man, how's your week been?
Man, it's been good. Me and my wife last week drove up to Oregon and took my wife. My wife's birthday was at the end of November, and then her sister turned 60 last year, and so last week, it was last Thursday, I believe. And so me and my wife, for her birthday, I took her to Oregon so she could spend her sister's 60th birthday with her, and her other sister flew in. So that they just had an absolute ball. And so it was kind of neat going up there. Not my kind of place to live, a little too big and too crowded for me. I like the smaller town feel, but we had a good time, other than the fact that it just rains all the time up there, dude. There's no sunshine, I don't think, in that city. It rained all but one day while we were there, and that one day I think the sun came out for an hour or two. Other than that, it was gray skies the whole time. I was like, man, no wonder everybody up here's on drugs and drinking all the time. I was like, they're all depressed. But yeah, it was a good time. We had a safe trip, and got back on Monday. And then the next day I woke up and thought I had food poisoning. I think I just caught a little small case of the flu for about 2 days. Man, I was just sick to my stomach. It was just awful. I couldn't hold any food down. And but I'm feeling much better today. Got my energy back. Still not 100% normal, but energy level. But at least I was able to get out in the shop today, and I didn't build anything. I just tinkered around, finished assembling the last rock steady stand that I had got from Rockler, and then I went to Lowe's, got some wood for the tops of my work table, and picked up the PVC and all the parts and everything for doing my dust collection. So I'm planning on getting that hard piped in. But yeah, been a good week, man.
And to quote you earlier, as I was talking with you, they think PVC is made out of gold.
Dude, I about
How
had a heart
expensive it is.
attack. I mean, I hadn't bought any in a while. And when we did our irrigation out here, it cost me a fortune, man. And it's like, my goodness, you used to be able to buy that stuff for nothing. And now it was, yeah. And you had made the comment about the dust fit. The PVC adapter fittings from Rockler were way cheaper than do you know how much those Ys were at Lowe's?
Oh, they're probably $10 a piece, aren't they?
Not no more. Over $20 a piece. I was like,
Are those 4-inch?
yeah, 4-inch. It was
Wow.
the 45s were $12 a piece. I was like, good Lord, man. And then the 10-foot sticks of 4-inch pipe, the Schedule 40, it was like $25 a stick. Yeah, I know. I was like, but it is what it is. It's one-time expense. I was like, eat it up and go home. And I was like, man, so I thought Rockler stole all my money. What was left, Lowe's took today.
That's funny. The at our old house, my shop was our garage, and it didn't have electric down the this was the north side, but it was the front because the garage came in the side of the house. And so for whatever reason, they didn't put any electric down that side. And so my father-in-law came down, my mother-in-law and father-in-law came down, and him and I spent a couple of days running electric. And when we made the list of everything we needed, and we ended up going to Lowe's or Home Depot, I don't remember which one it was. He's like, get ready. You're about to feel this one. And because I ended up buying a whole 500-foot roll of 12-2 or something, or it was a big roll, maybe 200 feet. I don't know, but it wasn't cheap. And then we bought all the PVC and stuff. And it's funny, people, you can judge me all you want. I can't do math in my head. I never have been able to. I can do your basic stuff, but when you start adding stuff together, I've always been bad at it. And so, we're grabbing these sticks of 1-inch PVC, to run for conduit, and these connectors and all this stuff. And boy, like you, I was like, holy moly. I think that running, we put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 receptacles in. The ones on the wall, the main run, were 4 bangers, and then the other ones were 2 with the PVC, and I think we're like $600 just in material. I think it was something crazy like that. I was like, goodness gracious,
man. That's what I was telling. It's like, man, people ain't gonna be able to afford to build a tiny house anymore. It's getting expensive. But
yeah, and that's what, like, we're at some point, probably not next year, but probably the year after, we're going to build a shop. I mean, we need to have the space. I'm going to do it myself. Like, yeah, I have the ability. I have the people in my life that can help me on things that I don't know how to do. And I can't afford now. I'm going to pay somebody I may end up doing the concrete myself too. Just renting a mini X, and I don't know. We'll see.
Just don't think about concrete. I used to do concrete for a living. Is that it depends upon the size of the slab you're pouring in, the temperature, and all that, because it plays a huge factor. That is one thing, unless you've got a bunch of people coming out there, because I imagine you're going to build a decent sized shop.
I'm thinking,
and, you're going to want somebody's got a power screed and everything, man.
That's true.
That out. So,
well, and we're in an interesting place. So we're in northwestern Pennsylvania. also known as Amish country. And the Amish are like, if you want to hire a workout, you hire the Amish. They do concrete, they build houses, they do everything. And so I know some crews around here that, probably relatively reasonable as far as that. Do Tennessee, everything's a lot. Well, I'll say everything's more expensive, but Tennessee's Tennessee, and it was, I think, a 30 by 40 pad. I probably want to go 40 by 60, or I don't know. We'll see. Whatever is the most economical, the biggest I can get, really. But 30 by 40 last year, I got quoted, and just the pad, I think, was 18,000. Just to pour a 30 by 40 pad in Tennessee, and I had 3 different people quote me, and so yeah, it's like, goodness. I remember 10 years ago you could build a whole 30 by 40 shop for that.
Yeah, you can't do anything you could do 10 years ago for that now. Honestly, the price of building materials since 2020, when the scandemic of the world happened, had the build materials. Now they've come down some, but it's astronomically higher than it was before that. And
yeah, I know. I worked for a bank in Tennessee, and we were lenders to a lot of the big builders, like the development builders. I remember hearing a number on basically their material cost to stand up a house, not the labor, but the material, like I think they call it the kit, right? To put a house up. And I want to say in like 2020, 2021, something, it like tripled almost.
Yep.
To where they're putting up houses and yeah, I don't know. It was nuts. And I remember, this is funny. You'll laugh at this, and then we can move on, because I could rant all day about this kind of stuff. In 2021, I think it was 2020, 2021, somewhere in then, I wanted to build my own Adirondack chairs. I'm like, yeah, I want to build my own. I bought Rockler plans, and I remember going to Lowe's to buy the lumber, because they give you the plans, give you, your lumber list and everything. And so, I always do like 10% over, just in case. I think those chairs and material, I want to say I paid for all the lumber for 2 chairs. I paid $500.
Holy cow.
Well, because I was a dumb and I did it right at that height where everything went stupid. Well, that's when I decided to build them.
Well, and that's when we moved to Colorado. We sold our house, two houses at the peak. We had a house and a rental house, and sold them kind of at the peak in North Carolina. But then we turned around, came here to Colorado, and just paid at the peak, and then built a house at the peak. So we didn't gain anything, but other than the fact that we live where we really want to live now, and it's absolutely beautiful. But yeah, but it was like, at that time, we were all sitting there, how long is it going to take the lumber prices? They stayed up for a very, very long time. But it is what it is. It's only money. You're not taking it with you when you die. Yeah, so
can't take it with you. And those Adirondack chairs, I could drive my truck up on. So it was funny. The plans for like Rockler, they want you to basically cut things down and make it slimline looking. No, I used the full 2x10 for the thing. Like I didn't mess around, or not 2x10, but I think it was 2x6s for the main pieces, and I just used the whole thing. I didn't even square them up. I said, you know what, these are going to be, and you could literally drive a truck on them. When we moved up here to Pennsylvania, we paid movers to pack the U-Haul. I drove the U-Haul up, but we paid movers to pack it. I remember the guys, the last stuff that they were putting on the truck was the porch, right? The patio stuff. And the one dude's like, all right, I'll grab these Adirondack chairs. And he went to pick it up. He's like, holy crap. Because, I mean, they're stout, right? and then my wife put 3 coats of exterior grade paint on them. Just, I mean, these things aren't. I don't. I don't want to have to ever do it again because I didn't like it. It was not fun making them, especially in the driveway of your house with, roll out tools, and it just. I'm proud of them. I'm happy I made them. They're really comfortable. They're really nice, but by golly, I'm never doing them again.
That's
So,
funny.
yeah. Anyways, but man, I got some exciting stuff to talk about today. But first, you're bringing a word to us, and man, what you got for us? What's the Lord put on your heart?
Yeah, man. So I'm gonna read 5 short verses today, and first I'm gonna start off kind of telling a story. So I have kind of avoided social media for a very long time just because of all the negativity and everything. But then I decided, I felt on Lord's heart a while back that, what kind of like, if you go back in the Old Testament, what one meant for evil, he meant for good. And so I was like, I'm going to hop on and give Instagram a try. So I've been on it now for a few months, and 99.9% of it has been a very positive experience. But then there's always that 1%. And, but I actually love it because of all the positivity. I've made some really great friends on it, and getting to meet other makers and communicate with people and sharing skills. A lot of you listeners have reached out to me on Instagram and become friends and communicate with me regularly. And I love communicating with you guys. It's just fun seeing the projects you're working on, learning new tips and tricks. But with posting stuff, whether you're doing it for content or just showing pictures of your own work, there's always going to be that one comment. And so I'm going to tell you a couple stories. So for those of you that have been following along on my Instagram, we have a wood stove. And, if you have a wood stove, the glass builds up with smoke sometime. And if you're good about cleaning it regularly, you just take a wet paper towel or newspaper and wipes right off. But if it builds up too much, it gets to be those dark stains, or you have to put a little elbow grease into it. Well, somebody taught me a trick. Just take that wet paper towel, dip it in a little ash that's right there. It's free. It acts as an abrasive, and it makes taking those stains off much easier. And I received so many positive comments, people saying, "Oh my God, I tried it. It was so much easier than just water." But then I got one negative comment. The person said, "That's stupid. You could do it with just water." And I immediately wanted to reply something negative. I wanted, that bad person deep down inside of me wanted to say, yeah, I could pump my car tires up with a hand pump, but I'm not an idiot, so I'm going to use an air compressor, and something like that. But what would that have accomplished other than just add fuel to the fire? But I'm not going to lie, for a moment, I had to sit back and kind of be cool and not reply. I did another post on blade height. And the reason I did that post is because I saw somebody cutting with what appeared like their table saw blade set all the way up. I mean, I was just like, that makes no sense at all. You're risking cutting yourself. But I didn't want to reply to that guy's post and say, hey, you're a fool cutting with your blade that high, or even just tell him, say, hey, you ought to consider lowering that. So I decided to make a post with just saying, hey, run your table saw blade lower. So I just kind of made a little reel, and in the reel, I showed how the old man that taught me how to set the blade height. And so, but the whole point of the thing was try to encourage people not to run it higher than necessary and to put themselves at risk. And that never had a clue that many people would watch it at something like 12, 13,000 views on that thing. And I've had people message me and say, man, I never realized that thought about the safety. I've been running my blade way up, and thanks for posting that. But then I've had like 3 or 4 comments, where, well, that's dumb. And I had literally one guy that posted an emoji and the word wrong. That's it. Just one of them sarcastic emojis. And so I decided, I was like, well, okay, let me look at his Instagram. Like, his Instagram was just nothing but pictures of the sky and rocks and koala bears. And I'm thinking, all right, so here, have you ever made anything? Do you even own a table saw? It's like, I don't know. But not to say that the way I was taught to set my table saw blade height is correct, because the guy that taught me could have been wrong. And then I just learned from him, believed it, and kept right on trucking. But I believe we can all learn from other people. But the whole point of this is I had an option of responding kindly, or I could just do what a lot of people do and respond with a negative comment. So I think the important thing when we're on social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever you're using, TikTok, that we remember that is a very dark place. And we got the option of being light, or we can just add to the darkness, and we need to be the light. So whatever we respond to, we need to think, is that approved by God or not? And so let's dive into God's word and see what he would say about us. We're going to start with James 1, verses 19 through 20. It says, "Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires." So, there's an old saying that we were all given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And so that means we need to listen twice as much as we speak. And the key part here in this verse is quick to listen, slow to speak. So if we let our mouth respond fastly and our ears respond slowly, and we respond with anger, the outcome is not going to produce a righteousness that God approves of. And that's what we're really after here. The next verse is Proverbs 14:29. People with understanding control their anger. A hot temper shows great foolishness. We do not want to look like fools, whether it's out in public or on social media. And having understanding of whatever it is. And typically, so many people respond with an answer about something that half the times their answer has no knowledge behind it. They just want to respond and be right. And even whether you might be right or wrong, responding in anger doesn't accomplish a thing. If we dive over into Proverbs 15:1, it says, "A gentle answer deflects anger, but a harsh word makes tempers flare." So it is our choice. We could choose to respond with a word that is going to put out a fire, or we can respond with a word that's just going to add fuel to it. And it's literally that simple. And I have found that when you respond with kindness, you will not get a response back from that person that made that nasty comment. But if you respond with something to add fuel to the fire, they just can keep right on going. So respond with a kind word. Ephesians 4:29 says, "Don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them." And so the one thing we have to remember when we respond to something on social media that's out there in the public eye, you may be responding to that one individual that made that negative comment, but every single person that sees all the comments on that post are going to be impressed, have an impression made about you and the words that you see. So that whether you post something positive or whether you post something negative, you're making an impression on more than just that one person. So again, we want to be the light. We want to be the person that stands out on social media as being different. And the last verse I want to share is Matthew 12:34. And the others I shared in the NLT. This one I'm sharing both the NLT and the ESV. In the NLT, it says, "For whatever is in your heart determines what you'll say." In the ESV version, it says, "Out of the overflow of your heart, your mouth speaks." So if we want to be able to respond in these situations in a positive way that produces righteousness that God approves of, we've got to fill our heart with the good first. And this comes back to what we've talked about before and being in God's word daily, and not just being in it, but memorizing some scripture, storing it up, because so often you may be in your car or at work and you take a look at Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and you might not have your Bible right there. And but having God's word stored up in your heart in these situations, the Holy Spirit will bring it back to your memory and help you to kind of slow down, be slow to, quick to listen, slow to speak, and then respond in a way that puts light out into the world. So, So this week I've had several of those opportunities, and I'm not going to lie, there was a part of me that wanted to respond in the improper way, but took a few moments, took a deep breath, and then said, okay, how can I respond to this in a positive way? So the consequence ends up, and you'd be funny when you respond in a positive way. Other people will send you messages like, "Man, way to respond to that guy." What are your thoughts on that, Will? Have you had any experiences like that on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, any of those things, and how have you handled it?
Not at all. Everybody's so nice. Yeah. One that stands out to me is we knew we were moving back to Pennsylvania, and I had, through a circumstance I talked about on the podcast a long time ago, I was able to get a SawStop table saw for a steal, right? And so I had this table saw, and we knew we were going to be moving back, but there's still a couple things I wanted to do. I really wanted to just use the saw. And so I set the saw up, and I made a cut with it. I had like a 5 or 6 inch wide piece of cherry, and I took like a sliver off of it, and I made a reel doing that, and it's on my Instagram page somewhere. But I did that, and I did it without using a push stick because I had like 5 inches between my hand and the blade. And so I'm more than comfortable with not using a push stick and just using my hand to push the wood through. And there's no comments on that whole post. It had quite a few views. But one guy who said something along the lines of, "You are leading people down a bad path by your poor table saw safety skills. And you should," and I think he said, "Then you should be ashamed of yourself." And I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" And one of my buddies commented on it, and he's like, "You serious, man? He's got more than enough room to use that. Plus, the dude has a saw stop. His fingers are fine." It's like, but there's always that one guy that, and in life in general, there's always those people in your life that are going to be the glass is half empty, right? There's always a cynical response. There's never a good response, and I've got somebody in my life right now at work that is like that. Like, there's never a situation that's good, always pulls the bad out of it. And it's hard to navigate that. It's hard to navigate around people like that. And so, yeah, it definitely rings true to me. A couple things. The section that you read in Matthew, in my Bible, I'm reading the New English translation. I have every translation, and I like to jump around. And the NET is kind of not quite like an ESV, but kind of over that way a little bit. But anyways, one of the things in 34 is a little bit longer, and for the mouth speaks what speaks from what fills the heart is what my translation says. But before that, it says, offspring of vipers, how are you able to say anything good since you are evil? For the mouth speaks from what fills the heart. But down to verse 37, it says, for by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned.
Yep.
And, there's something about the words that we say and how we, how we interact with people. As Christ followers, we are put on a higher standard, and we have different standards than others. And when somebody comes at you and they have some cynical response, or they say something, whatever it is, mean, or that word has been misused because for whatever reason we live in a sensitive culture. Sorry, but not sorry. And but there's people out there that are just plain mean. And one of the things that I learned years ago, and I try to remember, and the conversation came from like going out to eat, and the server, the waitress, if you ever had one of their waitresses that just doesn't care and is just like, if you ask for, no pickles on your sandwich, but it came with pickles, or you ask for no mustard and it come with mustard, and you say, hey, excuse me, this thing has mustard. We've all had those that just grab it and okay, whatever, right? Or whatever the case may be. And the one thing I've learned is that you do not know what somebody's going through in life. You don't know why they are the way they are. You don't know how their day's been. You don't know, what's happened. And so as Christ followers, we need to take a step back. When somebody comes at us with something, we need to take a step back and just think, man, I wonder what they're going through. And our first response should be, I need to pray for them. Like, I need to take a step back. I need to pray for them, because there's something going on that they're struggling. And it could be just a bad day. It could be that they had a rough life. There's just so many variables. Actually, on another podcast I listened to, We Built the Thing, they talk, one of the last episodes, they talked about comments. And I think it was Drew Fisher had a guy just comment something negative on his post. And he kind of came back and was like, man, I'm sorry. I don't know what your day's been like, whatever. And the guy commented back the next day and was like, man, I'm so sorry. It was a rough day, or something of that sorts. And so you just never know what people are going through. And so, as believers, we need to take that step back. And to your point, we have two ears and one mouth for a reason. Like, and I'm, funny enough, on the podcast, you may not be able to tell, and I try to hide it a little bit, but I'm kind of a cynical person at heart, and I'm very quick to respond to things in a way that, can be kind of sarcastic. It's just, I'm always thinking about, the funny thing, or just being kind of a goofball. But a lot of times it comes across as kind of, negative or cynical. And that's why I have to watch myself, because I have that tendency to do that. And so when somebody says something, one of the things that I'm praying God give me wisdom to do is to just be quiet, because I'm a talker, and I'm that guy that I can lead conversations, and at work I have to at times. I'm leading meetings or whatever it may be, and I have to learn to just be quiet and listen. right? Some of the best conversations that I've ever had with people comes out of me listening to them. And when somebody knows that you're listening, a lot of times, if you ever come across a situation where there's poor customer service or there's something going on, right? Whether it's dealing with Rockler or dealing with, maybe the tax collector or whoever you're talking with, if you don't come off with a defensive posture and you can quickly de-escalate situations. I mean, it's, and so, yeah, man, I could talk about this kind of stuff all day, but yeah, for the mouth speaks what fills the heart. And that sums it up. Some really good stuff. Does.
So, well, cool deal, man. Speaking of words, let's flip this to a positive light. So the two of us, as you guys have heard us talk about in the last few weeks, we decided to enter a little challenge called the Logo Swap Challenge on the Maker Collab. And that experience has been just absolutely amazing. And the people, in it, just 100% nothing but positive words. And I would say I find that 99.9% of the time in the entire maker community. The people encouraging us to, man, you're doing great. Way to try something new. Getting out of your comfort zone. Well, we pushed ourselves out of our comfort zone. And you guys, along with our friends and family, went and voted for us. And we just want to thank you because we never, for those of you that haven't heard, or we won. I still am
crazy, man. Got chills.
I'm still in shock. And because there were so many good projects. I'm like, not that I thought ours weren't good. It's just I'm always more impressed with other people's work. So I really don't.
We're the most critical of our own, aren't we?
And but I just there were some of the other projects that I was just so impressed with. But I'm so thankful. I'm very excited about us getting to go to Workbench Con. But really, as I was thinking about those negative comments this week, then I got to thinking about all the positive comments and that people from our community, from people from this listening to this podcast that communicate. And dude, it just really keeps me going. It keeps me wanting to get out in the shop and try something new and keep pushing my skills. And so what's this experience been like for you?
Well, it's been interesting. So I remember, because it was a month ago, right? You had shot me a text and you're like, it was pretty late at night. Now, also, if you don't know, I live in Pennsylvania and he lives in Colorado, right? So there's a 2-hour difference. And so what could be late for me is still, normal time for Tom. And so he texted me late one night. He's like, hey, I think we should do the logo swap challenge. He's like, here's the link to it. Check it out. Let me know what you think. We have to sign up by midnight or something like that. I was like, oh, okay. And so, well, I got to look at it. And I didn't understand what it was. Now, I don't know if I'm inept or it was just really strange because it was an interesting competition because we were competing individually, but yet together to win a prize. But it was take the other person's logo and make it out of something. And so I was like, I don't know. This is out of my wheelhouse, right? This is kind of out of my comfort zone. And so I reluctantly actually was like, okay, Tom, I'm going to do this. And yeah, so I started going through ideas and stuff. The one thing I regret is that I didn't make much content around it. Um, a couple of my stories I had just mentioned, like, oh yeah, here's that project I'm working on, but I never like took advantage of making content of me making it. And part of that is, uh, for a long time, I was doing content and making reels all the time and doing stuff. And then we had our second kid and moved back home to Pennsylvania. And I haven't gotten back into that mindset yet. So I never think, and it's been, I can't tell you how many times I'm out in the shop. I'm like, I do something and I start working on something. I think I should have recorded that. That would have been a cool reel or something like that. Right. And so I never thought about recording or doing anything for the logo swap. I was just doing it. And I knew that we had to post pictures of it at the end. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a challenge for me because a little intimidated. One, because I really didn't know what I was supposed to do. And two, you've been in the sign business for a long time. And not that you build signs by hand, but you understand design, right? And understand that side of it. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so, man, it was good. I thought what was really cool about this whole thing is to see everybody else's stuff, because there's some really creative stuff. And to your point, man, I was surprised. Actually, when we won, I hadn't been on Instagram that day. And so Tom just texted me. He's like, dude, we won. We're going to Workbench Con. I'm like, wait, what? And it was like, like kid at Christmas, man. Like you said it well in your reel that you did. Like, yeah, I remember that gift that you wanted at Christmas, and you wake up and it's there and you caught it and you're like, oh, I can't believe it. And so I was actually thinking about that, Tom, and you'll appreciate this. I didn't grow up having much, kind of a rough background, never really had much money, never went on vacations, never left the state of Pennsylvania until I was in high school. But I remember one year, my middle sister is 8 years older than me. I remember one year I was pretty young. I had to have been 5 or 6, maybe. I remember we went to bed and there were no presents under the tree. We never had much, but it was almost depressing. And my sister actually, because I was young, like I remember her sleeping with me in bed, like, it's going to be all right, buddy. It'll be okay. And I remember that. And it was so like surreal as a kid, like, oh, Santa's not coming, he's not, all this stuff. Well, then to wake up and have more presents than I've ever seen in my life. What had happened is I don't even think we had a tree. My dad went out and bought a tree, and my mom and dad stayed up all night decorating the tree. And then I don't remember the whole story, but I just remember going to bed with nothing and waking up with everything. And it's kind of how this felt in a sense, right? For us adults, there's always those things that you want to do. And Workbench Con, to be honest with you, it's expensive. Like it's like $650 a ticket just to go, and it's a 3-day thing, right? And so, it's a really expensive thing to do. Not to mention, if you don't live near there, you've got to travel and you got a hotel and all this stuff. And so when I was living in Nashville, Atlanta's only 4 hours away. And so I thought, at some point I'm going to go to Workbench Con because it's a drive, right? I could drive there and, all this stuff. But anyways, and so, yeah, it's really surreal. But anyways, the thing that I really thought was cool was your content. I mean, you took advantage of the fact that, and you'll talk about it more here in a bit, but like you had to change plans 48 hours till the deadline, and you've recorded every kind of moment of that. And it was cool to see the response that people were having on yours. And the Maker Collab people like were getting hyped up about it, and they were sharing to their story, and they're like, "Oh man, it's the final countdown." They were doing all this stuff, and so it was really cool to see that and just see the outpour. I had Instagram people on Instagram messaging me saying, "Hey, I voted for you guys. I voted for you guys," um, and it was just really kind of surreal to see it come into fruition. And so, yeah, man, really exciting. I'm excited to go. I feel like there's a lot God has planned for us with this trip, and there's a reason why we're going. But oh, we'll get to that in a minute. Talk about the logo swap build itself, and what were the challenges and kind of what happened, because it was kind of an interesting thing that happened, and the way you pivoted was pretty cool. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So first, yes, I have been in the sign business for 25 years, but so in the sign business, it's really a lot of different types of signs that are built. What I've mainly done in my career is vinyl graphics. So like when you go out to a Dick's Sporting Goods, for example, and you walk in and you see a big wall mural that from Adidas or Nike, those type things, when you walk to the front of a store and you see their logo and their hours on the front glass, or when you see a vehicle that with an auto wrap or things of that nature. So that's kind of what I have specialized in. And so it's a total, woodworking has always been a hobby, making furniture and cabinets, things of that sort. And when you had sent me your logo, Flat Woodworks, and then of course you had said, "Hey, can you help me with my logo for my new wood honey?" And I immediately knew I got to do something with this wood honey. This is what his passion has been. This is what his focus has been, and this is like going to be the big thing of Flat Woodworks. And so, and I was just drawn to it. But I had a idea in my head, and my idea was that I was going to make a wood honeycomb shape, and then I was going to fill the honeycomb with epoxy. I ordered some LEDs and was going to backlit it so that way the LEDs would shine through the honeycomb. And I still think it would have been really cool looking. And so I ordered color and epoxy and all from Total Boat, and Total Boat was fantastic. Like they literally shipped my order out. I had called them to talk to them, and because I've never done epoxy, and so I called them and talked to them about which epoxy and everything, and they were so helpful, and shipped my order out the same day or the next day. I mean, it was very fast. But you know how it goes this time of year. So the color and all my supplies came in one box, and the epoxy was in another box. Well, UPS was gracious enough to deliver the box of color and supplies on time and lose the box of epoxy, and it ended up arriving like a week later. It literally arrived the afternoon that the challenge was done. It's so anyway, I kept waiting for it and thinking, okay, I'll have this much time. I'll be able to get it done. And maybe it's not proper cure time, but it'll be good enough. I'm not selling it to somebody. I just got to get it. Well, then I realized, okay, I'm not getting this epoxy on time to do this. What am I going to do? And I'm not going to lie, the initial part, if you hadn't already completed my logo, I probably would just call and say, "Look, man, I hadn't got my supplies. Let's just back out of this thing." Would probably have been, but I knew that you were already done, and I'm like, I can't quit. That I'm the one that dragged him into this challenge, for me to call him up and say, "Sorry, man, I didn't get my supplies. I'm out." It just wouldn't have been right. And plus I'm not a quitter. I just don't like. So then I just started brainstorming, and it's like, okay, what can I do with what I have on hand? And then I came up with this idea of making a charcuterie board and trying to using two different colors wood and trying to make the lighter color wood. So what I did is I used walnut and some soft maple, and making the soft maple a different thickness and making it so it give it some dimension, look like the honey was flowing over the walnut charcuterie board. And I was like, I've got the maple here, I've got the walnut. How am I going to do the lettering? And so the Willie's wood portion, I actually hand engraved in with my palm router. And so they are fortunately, well, one skill that I do have, and I have a vinyl plotter. I was able to take my vinyl plotter and just quickly make me a stencil. I stuck it on there, and then I took my palm router and very slowly routed it in. Then that portion I went back, filled it with black CA glue because I had no epoxy. And had to do it multiple times, and then spray the accelerator, sand it off, and then the word honey, I cut that out on the bandsaw, the outer portion out of maple, and then the inner parts, I took my drill press, drilled down in, and then took my my little rotary tool with a carving bit and carved the rest of it out, rounded around the edges to try to give it more of a honey look. And yep. So, but that's what I did. And so this all happened. The new design came up 3 days before the thing was done. And I got some lumber. Cause I didn't have the soft maple. I had the wood. So I had gone and, picked up that, and, but that was here, locally. But, I just made that real. It's like, well, you know what? We're just going to have to make the best out of this stressful situation. I was like, let's add some humor to it. And so that's when I just started. I was like, I'm going to film everything, and just like, and I don't know what made me start putting the count down, but then at each step, I just looked at my watch. I was like, okay, I got 23 hours and 14 minutes left. Next step, I got 60, whatever the time was left. And I just started putting that on every little reel. And that's where, like, you would not believe the positivity. Like, the other people in the challenge were like responding, man, keep it up. You can make it. You could do it. Keep going. And it gave me energy, like, just to keep pushing through and doing it. And it really made it fun. But all the people interacting with me was what made it so fun. It was like, so I'm actually thankful that the epoxy did not arrive on time, because I probably would have been more in your boat and not have filmed as much. And, and that really, and ironically, like, so I crossed 1,000 followers today, literally about an hour or two before we started recording. I think before this challenge, I was only at like 300, something like that. Like, that's how much participating in this and the communication with other people. It's been just an amazing experience. So I'm very excited for us. And I really do believe, like, from an artistic standpoint, I personally like some of the other ones better than ours. I just, and it's probably just because what type of artwork I like and everything. I just thought their creativity was amazing. But I do think that God's hand was in this. I think that there's something that we're going to learn at Workbench Con. Maybe it might be a sponsor for the show or something. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like God is preparing us to make this podcast even better. And so I'm very thankful that we won these tickets. And because the cost of an airline ticket from Colorado combined with hotel and then the cost of a workbench, it just would not have been in my budget. So it wouldn't have been a possibility. So, yep. But yeah, man, I'm excited. It's still, I'm thinking, is this real? Did it really happen? So anyway, well, man, what you got going on in the shop?
Yeah. So I decided this year. Well, okay, let me back up a little bit. Um, we normally don't do gifts for extended family for Christmas. Today is December 15th as we're recording this. And so, we're not far from 10 days from Christmas, right? And so normally we don't do anything for extended family. Maybe do something small for in-laws, but we just don't. This is more about celebrating the birth of Christ. Of course, we get gifts for kids and stuff like that. But um, my my wife got a text from her brother, said, "Hey, what size are your kids?" Which means he's going to get they're going to get our kids some clothes or something. Well, okay. Well, now we feel obligated, right? And they've got 4 kids. And then my other brother-in-law has 2 kids. And so it's like, okay, well, now we've got to do something for them. And so I don't think any of them listen to the podcast. And if they do, well, their kids don't. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to make out of cherry door plates and laser engrave their names into all the, just kind of like, 2 inches by, 5 or 6 inches long, and just laser engrave each one of their names into it. And have it'd be something they can hang on their door of their bedroom with their name on it. And so it's not hard. It's just time consuming because I have the lumber, and the laser engraving's fine, but the laser engraving takes time. And so, especially when you're doing, if I do kind of block kind of letters that have a lot of fill to them with the engraver, it's going to take a lot of time. Now, my saving grace may be that it's cherry. Cherry engraves very well. I mean, if you've ever worked with cherry, it burns if you leave the router on it too long. And so I may be able to get away with running it faster and not having to engrave as much. So I'll have to test that as far as that's concerned. But so yeah, I've got 8 of those to make because I'm also making them for my kids. And so I've got 8 nameplates to make. And then my father-in-law's birthday is Tuesday. Today is Friday. And so my wife wants me to engrave something for him. And then there was something else. Well, I just finished. So I had taken 2 cutting boards I made to my wife's craft show. And then I took 3 charcuterie boards. Well, the 2 cutting boards didn't sell, which was weird. Everybody picked them up and was like, "Oh my gosh, these are awesome!" And I only had them priced for $40. I mean, I really wasn't making money on them. I just, enjoyed doing it. And so they didn't sell. And so I just took a picture of them and I posted them on Facebook, not on like Marketplace, just my friends, and just said, "Hey, if there's anybody that wants one of these cutting boards, shoot me a message. I have 2 of them." Within 5 minutes, both of them were sold. One guy I work with, and he wanted something laser engraved on the bottom of it. And then the other guy I go to church with, and he wanted it as a gift for his wife. And so, but then the guy that wanted the one laser engraved, he says, "Hey, I saw you made a sign," and he was talking about yours. He says, "Would you be able to laser engrave a sign for my father-in-law?" And basically his father-in-law, his hobby is fishing. And the joke in the family is he has so much tackle that he could open up his own bait shop because he's just got so much stuff. And so as a joke, I made a sign. I don't even think I got pictures of it. Well, I already gave it to him anyways. That has his name and bait and tackle. And I designed up this, thing. And so I worked on that, got that going this week. But yeah, other than that, not too much out in the shop. After Christmas, I'm really gonna first of the year. Really, I'm really gonna get moving on the Willie's Wood Honey. I've got to get that moving. I have some goals for myself, and I feel God is pushing me into this in a good way. Like that, this is going to be a good business venture because I don't know. I just have a feeling about it. So I got to get moving on that. And yeah, not too much else going on aside from getting the Christmas stuff done. Um, I'll tell you what I want to do and what might happen after Christmas, getting into the first of the year. I just want to build a piece of furniture. I haven't built a piece of furniture in a long time. Now I have my desk that I have, and it wasn't really. I made a top and put metal legs on it, and that was fun. A lot of time to prep it and flatten it, and it was woodworking, if you will. But I just want to build a piece of furniture. I'm just like, and so anywho, yeah. Other than that, man, just I've been. I told you before the podcast, before we started recording, I've been spending a lot of time in the Word. I don't know why, in a good way, but I feel like God's preparing me for something, and so I've had this unusual hunger, which is a good hunger. Like you should always have the hunger, right? I've had this hunger for the Word, and so I've been spending a lot of time in the Word, and there's been a fire lit, a Kindle, something's there. And so I don't know if it's Workbench Con, I don't know if it's some stuff at work, but been digging in the Word a lot. And so I haven't spent as much time out in the shop as I normally would because, I been staying up later because my wife's been out in the shop doing stuff with the glass. And so I like to go to bed with my wife. Like I don't like going to bed at different times if I don't have to. And so I'd rather stay up late with her. And then in the mornings, I'm a little more rushed, but so I don't have the time in the morning. So I'm spending the time at night doing my studies instead of in the morning. So anyways, but yeah, that's what's been going on with me. How about you, man? So what's going on at the shop now that the logo swap's done and we've won, and now you get to do some woodworking.
Yeah, for me, same thing. I could get some Christmas gifts made, and the last couple of days I didn't do anything because I was sick. You can probably hear it in my voice, but I feeling much better today. I went out there in the shop, definitely not 100%, but like I said earlier, I finished assembling that and then went Lowe's, got some wood and got the stuff. I'm going to get my dust collection hard piped in tomorrow. I've been spending way too much time rolling my dust collector from tool to tool. And like when I did that challenge in that 48 hours, man, I couldn't tell you how many times I disconnected and reconnected my dust collection hose. And that made me realize, like, man, I could have done this thing much quicker if I just didn't have to do that. And so and the reason I've never done it before is I really didn't know if I had my tools where I wanted them. I kind of wanted to get my shop laid out, but I really like the layout and the flow of it now. And so I'm going to run hard piping down one side and then pour it out. I'm still going to have a couple of those flex hoses. So my joiner, my planer, my spindle sander, and then a new tool that I ordered yesterday that is on the way will all still be quick disconnect, but my table saw will be permanent. CNC, my miter saw, my band saw, and my drill press will all have permanent dust collection. And those are the things I use, because like the joiner, you typically, you go over there, you switch it to that, you get all your joint done, and then you could switch it. I'm going to have it in my drum sander, which is what I ordered yesterday. So I had been saving up for a while. Thought I missed my opportunity because I had not got paid on a job when the sale, but Jet ended up doing another 15% off sale up until the 17th. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait for that thing to arrive, but it's going to sit side by side with my joiner. And so, I'll just switch from one to the other on those two. So, but that's my focus. Then next week I've got to get my daughter's desk built that I'm doing for her for Christmas. And then I got a couple little small Christmas projects. My mom is coming in from South Carolina on Tuesday to spend a couple weeks with us for Christmas. And so I'm going to make her a little, it's very hard to buy something for your mom that's in her mid 70s because they have everything. But I'm going to make her, I've got an idea for a little wooden gift. I'm going to make her, and then a couple things I'm making my mom. And then I'm going to try to make some. I've never done it, and I'm going to have to test it out. But if the drum sander arrives in time, I want to try making some bookmarks. But I haven't, but I don't have a way, because you know how if you try to get wood too thin, you can't run it through the planer. But my thinking is with the drum sander, I'll be able to make a sled because I've seen other guys do this. So that's what I'm really excited. I don't know. I called Jet. They said they have them at the warehouse ready to ship. But when I ordered it, the thing said shipping in mid-January. So I don't know when I'll get it. But so, yep. But that's what I'll be working on. So
now, question, in your shop, do you have quick connect like 4-inch ports on your tools, or do you just...
Yes. So I have the Rockler, the handle, and nothing against it. But if I had seen those magnetic ports before,
that's what I have.
Yeah, that's what I really want. But I'm a cheapskate. I've already bought all the fittings on every tool. And I'm like, it would be nice to do that magnet, but I am not spending the money to switch now. So I'm just going to.
Well, you know what I did?
What?
I had my buddy 3D print them for me. I paid pennies on the dollar compared to what they sell them for.
So go ahead and rub that in. I don't have a buddy. When I get me a 3D printer, I'm going to print my own. But until then, I'm going to use these handles.
Well, yeah. You do have a buddy that has a big 3D printing business that's going to be on the podcast at some point. So, Mr. Jason.
Yep.
But yeah, so I had my buddy print out a bunch of those for me, and then he glued in neodymium magnets, and so I have one on my table saw, and one on my I broke the one on my planer. That's my fault, and then the one on the handle has the opposite, and it has a recess on it to give it a good seal.
Yep.
And just just throw it up to it, and it works fine.
I know. But that is an absolute brilliant invention. And like I said, if I had not already, but I already have paid and spent the money on all those. I'm like, it would make sense. I'm not spending the money.
Like I said, the only thing I would spend the money on now that I already have that I regret buying is, I think we talked about this once before, I wanted the Rockler 25-foot blue 4-inch hose, the one that the collapsible one.
Yep.
I think is that what you have?
They make them in two different lengths. They have a 21 and a 28, and I have both of them because I've got two different ones that are going to be, and one of them I needed to be a little bit longer. But yeah, they are very nice, and they retract back up. They retract back up so well. You almost wish they didn't retract quite as well. Like they're good at
I bought one on Amazon, and it works fine, but it doesn't retract back up. So I've got 25 foot of 4-inch hose laying all over my shop because doesn't really retract up very well.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I may end up at some point getting me that Rockler one because I have a small shop, and it'd be really nice to just be able to get that. My buddy Tim over TW Woodworks on Instagram, he has one. That's the first place I messed with it, and then I looked at the price of them, like, oh, I don't know, I can't. At the time I couldn't justify paying that much, so I bought a $50 hose off of Amazon, and I got a $50 hose. It works fine, but it's just, not the same. Yep. Not the same at all. But man, it's getting late here. I have a men's breakfast in the morning at church. The second or third Saturday of every month, our church has a men's breakfast. And so the guy, I'm usually there to help set up and everything, but the main guy who usually runs it is out of town this weekend. And so me and my buddy are going to do it. He can cook. I can't cook. You don't want me nowhere near a kitchen. And so I'm be there for moral support, but I got to get up early and get to the church to help out for that. But just want to throw a shout out if you want to support the podcast. There's a few ways you can do that. You can give us a 5-star review on Apple. Goes a long way. You can support us on Patreon financially if you want. Patreon.com/Faith Talks Wood. There are several different levels, match any budget that you have, and it just goes to help us with the podcast, and we really appreciate that. And then the third way is you can pray for us. Tom and I love doing this, and we want to stay in the Lord's will as we do the podcast, and prayer goes just as long as the other two, and so we really appreciate that. But man, until next week, I'm Will from Flat Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.